So I'm going to call them up, just give you a little bit about what they've done. It's really hard to narrow it down to a few sentences, but I did my best. Hopefully you can get a sense about what they, the stake that they have in this conversation. I'll start with Linda Ochwada. She is a geoinformatics expert. She specializes in spatial data. Running away from me, I thought you would sit here. But no, actually, you can actually go sit there. I think it's...
me, I will be here.
No, I think the women with the shortest hair on the panel, let's guard it that way. Yeah, I mean... Okay, so spatial data analysis and visualization. I don't know what that is, but I hope you can tell us. You say you're an AI product evangelist. In fact, she says, through harnessing advanced technologies like machine learning, we can tackle pressing challenges. So that's her gospel as an AI evangelist. And she's also the co-founder and the vice president of, how do we say this, Kenderaalala? Kenderaalala.
Yeah.
Okay. Women group. It's something. It's an organization that's in Kenya, and you're going to tell us a little bit more about that. So that's Linda, everybody. Right. And then we have Ms. Bassant Helmi. She is the founder and the managing director of Global Project Partners. This is a Berlin-based non-profit association which has implemented a wide range of projects, which are aimed at supporting businesswomen in the Middle East and North Africa region, all in the field of renewable energies. She's also the Secretary General of the Women in Business Network. You've heard about networks today, already this morning, which connects more than, get this, 4,000 businesswomen across Germany, Africa, and the Middle East. I know that she's also passionate about networks, how important it is to belong to a network, and she's going to be telling us about that as well. So that's Bassant. And then we have a history maker on the panel. Mr. Charles M. Huber is the special advisor to the Senegalese president, who we know. Do we know who he is? President? Macky Sall. I only asked because last year Senegal was chairing the presidency of the African Union, so he was, a real champion for the continent in that time. I said he's a history maker, Mr. Huber, because he is a former member in the German parliament. And when he was elected, this was in 2013, he was actually one of the first people of African descent. That's your seat right here. Oh, he's running away also. Nobody wants to sit next to me today. He was one of the first people of African descent to be elected to the German parliament. So hence the element of history making, right? But what's even more interesting for us, friends, is that while he was in Parliament, he served on the Committee for Economic Cooperation and Development, where he was largely focusing on Germany's relationships with countries in West and Central Africa. So those networks that we're trying to build. All Africa, excuse me. Because I was going to say, why did you leave out the South? But it was all Africa, excuse me. Thank you so much for correcting that. Okay, and then last but not least, Mr. Knödler, you can come right back here. Thank you so much for... Are we okay space-wise? Do want to give you guys some room a little bit over here. Okay, let's do that. Okay, Linda, let's maybe get started with you because, so here we are talking about a digital transformation, and I just want to get the topic right here as well because that's really key to what we're doing. How young leaders are shaping a green and inclusive future. I've told everybody a little bit about your bio, but just tell us about exactly what you do and how you're contributing to this whole project of shaping a green and inclusive future for the globe.
Thank you so much. So in my whole life, I've been transforming digitally. So I come from a social science background. I did BA Geography. And immigrated to German in 2013, although my German is ein bisschen, that's what I always say, very little. And from social science, I went directly to an informatic course, yeah, and with a 5-month-old kid. So being in informatics, owning my first computer, typing slowly, and that's why I'm proudly seated here and really looking forward to talking about digital transformation. And so I did my master's in geoinformatics at Technical University Berlin. I've worked a bit as a geodata scientist. Then I owned a company that did consultancy for German companies working with African data in the field of geodata. So this means data obtained from satellites, drones, and really trying to figure out how best you can use this data for decision making. So this is what I did, and through that I've also supported women who are transitioning from social science to technical. I'm also a mentor in African women in GIS, in geoinformation science, and really trying to make sure that they are transitioning in a way that they are proud of themselves. They say there and they're like, yes, I've transitioned in a better way that I was expecting. Right now, till November, I'll be the product manager of Dealcode, and I'm also a co-founder of a startup that uses AI, more of NLP, natural processing language. And what we do is bring startup from zero to MVP. So, as we say, again, digital transformation. So startups and companies that are not yet digital, we help them build from zero to MVP in a way that they have their own online presence. Yeah.
Okay. Just one follow-up. What is MVP?
Yeah, so business people, you know that, right?
Oh, you guys know. Don't leave us behind. Or me behind. MVP.
This is kind of like the minimal viable product that you can bring out there in the market.
Right.
Whenever you are pitching for investors, they can kind of have an image on what you are implementing or bringing to the table.
Yeah. I just wanted to tell you guys an anecdote. So I had briefing calls with some of the panelists, and so I said to Linda, do you do Zoom or Teams or whatever? She's like, we can use my platform. So she built some incredible platform, and that's the platform that we actually used to do the briefing call. What's it called again?
It's called Jointly with a Y. So the company is called Codex, that I'm a co-founder, and we have a product that you can actually browse together. We have a virtual computer that you can just go in the virtual computer and browse together, code together, talk together, play games together. It's like Yahoo with a swag.
Yahoo would say. So that's Linda, everybody, really impressive. Okay, so Bassant, when we spoke, you were really, really making the emphasis about how networks are important. We heard it again from Mr. Knödler this morning, but just why are you so passionate about these networks? I mean, the Agile program is also about networks. How important, and I mean, that's what you're spending a lot of your time doing, connecting people, building these networks. Just tell us how important they are, but also how we preserve them.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here among you today. It's always a pleasure to support networks and support such initiatives. I was born and raised up in Cairo, Egypt, but I've been living here for the past 23 years. So part of me is very German, the other part is very Egyptian, very African. So I'm really happy to be here among you. When I came here, when I left my comfort zone in Egypt, and let's call it comfort zone, and came here to Germany, I had a little network, and this network was the network of German chambers of industry and commerce. I used to work in Egypt for the bilateral chamber of commerce before coming to Germany, and this network helped me here, when I started the non-profit organization and when I started later on my company, okay? And then I really believe in the power of networks, and I just urge every one of you to be part of a business association or a network, connect with others. The networks can play different role in your life at different stages. You can first give and then take. or the other way around. So I would like to know how many of you are members of NGOs or business associations or startup networks.
Oh, good.
Brilliant. Keep it up. Because, sometimes when you initiate the network, it's not always easy to see the impact. But we have another network called Digital Arabia Network, and I'm connecting the MENA tech talents here, MENA, Middle East and North Africa talents here in living and working in Berlin. And, it's a pleasure when you get like a call from someone. She's a Syrian IT specialist. Attended one of our events, and after a month she called me and told me, Bassant, after this event I got a job. I got to know someone. I signed the contract, so I want to say that. And the event was called Should I Stay or Should I Go? And it was Germany as a hub for attracting talents or sending them back.
Wow, interesting. Wow. I just wanted to know, what have you shared one anecdote about, but tell us about some of the other highlights you've had in the years that you've been, fostering these networks, basically.
I was always annoyed by not recognizing the role of businesswomen in North Africa, even in Germany. And when I came the first day, I came to work. When I came here to Germany, I had to build up the rep office of the German chamber in Egypt. And I was at the House of German Business, so I came and I saw a sign, Verband Deutsche Unternehmerinnen, Association of Female Entrepreneurs. So I went to them, I got to learn them, and I convinced them to come with me to support the businesswomen associations in Egypt, because they were very young. The Businesswomen Association here in Germany was established after the Second World War, when all of a sudden the German women were responsible for their family businesses, the men were at the war or died, and they inherited and took over their businesses. And so it was established in 1954. Mm-hmm. And all the Businesswomen Associations in Egypt and Tunisia and Côte d'Ivoire, Senegal, where we are also present now, were founded in the 90s. So I thought at the beginning there is so much know-how transfer which can be going on, but now it's really a partnership at an eye level, and I can tell a lot of examples afterwards, but I don't want to talk a lot.
Thank you, Bassant. Mr. Huber, I'm really interested to know about the work that you did in your time as an MP, fostering these connections between Germany and Africa specifically, because really, when you hear that number, 1% of German FDI going to an entire continent, that's really astonishing.
Yeah, thank you very much. Brothers and sisters, it's a pleasure talking to you, not in Africa, but seeing you all in Germany here. To complete a little bit my CV, as the narratives of Africa, they're mainly created by communication. And when Mr. Knödler was talking about the risk aversion of German companies, I mean, the aversion is also the source of the problem. Because if you have no economic development, a continent or a country cannot be stable. I am also a person who comes out of the communication business. I was also the first actor of African descent in a TV series outside of the US. It was in 1984. And already at that time, and the reason for me to become public with my message was to put the focus on Africa. Yeah. Because I don't see all these narratives realistic, all the perception of African people as individuals and Africa as a continent. I saw there is a big, how can I say, distortion of the reality when it comes, especially when it comes to talent. I don't see, and when I lived in Senegal for the last 5 years, like you said, Christine, as an advisor to the president of Senegal, I'm still on the job, on remote. The thing is, I never, and I founded 2 schools. I built 2 schools in Africa, and I was an eyewitness, when I saw all these young kids. The youngest one were 4 years old. First, the hunger for education, and second, the talent and the intelligence. And it was really mind-blowing. So you ask yourself, how can that be that a continent full of talent like Africa is on an economic state like it is? So the simple question is, there are institutional parameters who were really, how can I say, blocking Africa in terms of its economic development. It's an institutional thing. It's not just a talk, between individuals. And there is an institutional term. It's called the global partition of labor. And this was implemented on the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. And in the 60s and 70s, I mean, these decades where most of the African countries became independent, that was set up for Africa. They said African countries as a whole can only contribute with 6% of the global partition of labor. So if you now hear, about the phenomena of migration, which causes a problem, and having no jobs in Africa, creating migration, dividing the European society due to the migration phenomena, if you see that, and people use the argumentation to say, we have to block Europe, in terms of all the migrants, from Africa, they don't talk about the real source of the problem, because the global partition of labor for African countries decreased to 3% and under 3%. So that's the core problem of African development. And also the image of African people in Europe correspond with the economic success of the countries of the origin. Getting back to the question you asked me, so what was my contribution? It was very simple. With that agenda, personal agenda, I come from a Senegalese politician family. I grew up here. I grew up at the countryside of Bavaria. That's why I have tattooed Bavaria here on my right arm. But I'm also Senegalese. My uncle was president of Senegal, Leopold Sédar Senghor. My father was a diplomat, and my aunties and uncles were part of the first equipe of the Senegalese government. So when I entered the German parliament, I was asked by all the ambassadors of Africa for a special meeting. They said, "Oh, Mr. Huber, help us. You know both sides, because the Germans don't understand us." I said, "Okay, let me do my best, and let me weigh in, with my personal expertise." I was also advisor to the Ethiopian government when I left the Syria Stability in 1996. And I said, "Okay, is there any, is Africa really in the agenda of Germany?" The answer was no. It changed the moment where the migration crisis increased, and that's where I saw the moment where I put my agenda on the table. I said, if we don't increase the economic cooperation a little bit away from the technical cooperation, from GIZ and all that, we're not going to change anything, and we're not going to be on the field. And now people come, we always say, the Chinese, they're doing this and this and that. And I said, what are you doing except telling people how, to see life, how to do things, talking about corruption? I said, corruption is not an African phenomenon. Just in Africa, you just have politics for corruption. You don't have an economic level, so it's more visible. That's it. I said, let's attack that, and I also had a couple of interviews also with Deutsche Welle. Now there is one article, on the Deutsche Welle. It's called "The Master Plan." Africa needs a master plan. I didn't say we have to do the master plan, because there has to be a contribution also from the willpower from the African continents and this African political stakeholders to change that. Yeah. And that out of that idea, the master plan for Africa, the Marshall Plan from Mr. Miller was developed.
And I actually think that that's so important because, narratives are a big part of the whole thing. It comes down to perception. The former German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, she set up a program that you would know about. It's called the G20 Compact for Africa. And her whole idea was to mobilize the private sector with the backing of the German government to go and invest in Africa. And she said, really, as you say, the risk perception about the continent, the ignorance about the continent. I think we as media as well have not always helped in terms of what is the narrative of the continent that we're putting forward. So the work that Mr. Huber would have done, very basic conversations about educating people about what it's like on the dark continent, breaking down some of those very wrong perceptions and helping people understand. So this mingling, and then we realize we're all the same people, we're not different in any way. But just coming back to the issue around, you talked about the transition, the green transition, and that's a major theme that you're hearing from this part of the world, I would say. I mean, we're also talking about it on the continent, but there is a huge emphasis on the green transition. And I wondered, in that context, it's pretty clear that as far as I've been made to understand, that Africa is really a key part of the world's green transition. And from a German perspective, how do you see, partnerships like this and people like the business leaders we have in the room today, how do you see us tapping into this to be able to achieve everybody's goals in the green transition?
Well, thank you. First of all, let me say it's actually the compact with Africa, not for Africa. It's fine, but important difference.
Big difference,
actually, we're gonna try to reinvigorate it this November, here in Berlin, and we're really bringing more countries and partners into the fold. But I want to say, and thank you for addressing the green transition, right? It sometimes feels like that's an idea of rich nations. Now we're rich, now we can afford to go green. And the truth is that, and I don't want to argue, right? There's many studies who say, well, no, there's a business case and so on. But when you look at how cheap it's become to go green, when you look at how cheap it's become to generate energy from solar and wind, it's actually a no-brainer. It's quite often regulation stands in the way in many countries, including our own. And but when you look at, we just supported a program in Egypt, and now the kilowatt hour is less than 2 cents. That's both true for wind and solar, and that's even more true when it comes to green hydrogen. And while listen, it's a hype, but it's also a change maker, because we need to decarbonize our economies, and it's become very clear because climate impacts are growing. And actually, Africa is one of the continents that's suffering the most from more extreme weather events. So if you want to stop that, we should partner here. And actually, there are huge business opportunities. And actually, what I said earlier about ecosystems, there's opportunities to change ecosystems. Because it's not only about like producing green hydrogen and exporting it to Europe. It's about building green industries. First, it's P2X products like methanol, like ammonia, that can be used to greening fertilizers, which would make a huge change. Greening maritime transport, you name it, greening industries. But then, because it costs a lot of money to transport these products, it also makes a lot of sense economically to build clusters of green industries, like green steel, green cement, greening the building businesses. Right. They're huge opportunities, and the cost parity of these green products is going to come in the next 15 years, some sooner than later. But it's, for example, for green fertilizer, ammonium nitrate, which is like the main fertilizer used around the globe, to produce that with green hydrogen in countries like Namibia, cost parity is going to come in 2025. That's 2 years down the road. In other production sites in Africa, it'll be probably around 2030. But since these investments need also time, they don't just fall from heaven, right? You need to set this up. You need the investors. You need the regulation. You need to tender. And so 2030 is around the corner, right? And this really can be a change maker to get more like move many countries in Africa up the value chain, and of course those are going to be ecosystems. It's not just like a green hydrogen plant. It's not just a wind farm. It's a lot of skilled workforce that's needed, where there are a lot of like green skills, a lot of IT skills that will be needed to get this up and running and to maintain these new industries.
You had a follow-up?
Yes, Mr. Knödler, I have a couple of questions. The thing is, for me, I speak a little bit out of the perspective of Africa. I know your agenda. It's a very important agenda, green energy. But the situation is, if you come as a young entrepreneur to Africa, first of all, the energy sector is a very tough sector. You need a hell lot of investment, to, how can I say, to set up a business over there. That's one thing. The other thing is, where you said there are a couple of blockages in different countries and so on. Africa has natural resources of their own. They have oil and gas. They want to use the oil and gas, like South Africa wants to use coal. And the situation is that Africa was not responsible due to the very, very low economic output and the impact of climate change. Not at all. So I remember, when Macky Sall, when you were talking about Macky Sall, he was really advocating the membership of African Union in the G20. When he went to Paris and spoke to President Macron, how support on the oil and gas prospection and so on was a problem. He said, due to the green agenda of Brussels, we don't support oil and gas prospection anymore. So the fact is, still oil gonna be prospected. Just if you have, as a government, a contract, contract negotiations with an oil company. It's how you set up the contract, and there's a term, it's called the primary split. If you don't contribute from the primary split, they say we have to, recoup our investment till the end, and then, we know how the business runs, they pump up the volume of of fees and stuff. So at the end, the government and the people, after 10 years or 15 years, have a benefit from that. So a friend said, we're not going to do that. And 2 weeks later, 3 weeks later, nuclear energy and gas, as there was a need, in France, the parameters changed. European Union said, okay, we support that. And before, I called the World Bank and informed President Sall. The World Bank said in certain occasions, we also support gas prospection. So the energy sector is a very tough sector. And you need big investors, and you need also to fulfill the energy agenda and the energy mix of different countries, and you have to be very, very well connected.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make. And of course, a lot of that is very political, which I'm so glad we don't have to resolve this today. But yeah, you're absolutely making some very important points. But I do want to come back to you, Linda, because you this AI aspect of all of this, right? Actually, I had a follow-up for you. You talked about the big opportunities. Sorry, Linda. No.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation.
No, because you talked about big opportunities, and I just wanted, is there money? You said there are big opportunities, but is there money? Because that's what it comes down to, really the investment for all of this. And I get the sense that right now, with the world in financial turmoil, really, the headlines are here in Germany as well. It's a very difficult time. Is there money to be investing? Does private sector actually have maybe not just the appetite, but the actual resources to be able to go out and leverage these networks financially on the continent?
And when you say money, you mean like public government money?
No, as in from the private sector. Like, is that something that they're able to do right now? Or is there a bit of a cash trap kind of a situation?
So, simple answer, yes and no. Because liquidity is not an issue in most economies. It's the conditions. So many banks, like for entrepreneurs, to provide necessary securities, interest rates, maturities, those are issues. And this is actually where the public sector can come in and bridge this through refinancing local, regional financial institutions to reduce the interest rate and come in with longer maturities. That really makes a difference, and that we see. And it's actually especially unfair for women. It's much harder in many countries we work in for them to access funding for funding a company, for founding a company, and then growing a company. So I mean, you know that much better as entrepreneurs than I do as a government guy with like a with a government contract. But what we see is that like funding a company is the first challenge, but the second challenge, and that's equally challenging. That's growing a business. When you're successful, there's a lot of beyond like traditional finance institutions. There's a lot of like startup funding around in many countries, including our own. But what about scale-up finance? Yeah. And that's when many people come. All the many meetings I've had. That's when people like trying to crowd in family money and really like betting their entire lives on these companies. And that is a challenge, like to jump from like a successful startup to a bankable company. Yeah. And this is a gap we need to address much more in the future.
That word bankable, because I've heard a lot of entrepreneurs on the continent who say you apply for financing and you get met with the word, is this a bankable project? Can this be scaled up? And these are almost where you hit a wall, and that's the end of the story, almost. So I think maybe there are follow-ups today, but I'll let you off the hook for now, because Linda, I do want to get back to the tech aspect of all of this, because we're talking about a digital transformation as well. Please, can we just have a bit of an AI conversation with you? You say we need to leverage we need to leverage AI, basically, and you say anybody who's not taking that on board, you're going to be left behind.
Thanks for the question. First of all, let's understand what digital transformation is first. Yeah, and each and every one of you, as long as you're in a company, driving a company, have his or her own definition of digital transformation. In your own sense, you've tried to figure out what is your problem, what problems are you facing in the company, then you go ahead and look for a solution. And that solution may be AI related, or may be IoT related, Internet of Things related, how to save your data in the cloud, or how to efficiently do something. Let's say write 6,000 emails in an hour. And to that extent, you may leverage AI. And I like saying one thing, that AI will not replace humans. Humans who use AI will replace those who do not. Right now, the world is moving so fast, and with the introduction of ChatGPT, everything right now is ChatGPT. Every aspect that you go, even in VC, if you include just the buzzword AI, they will look at your proposal twice or three eyes. Okay. Yeah? That's kind of the push that AI, or let's say trends, have in different aspects. So, coming to leverage AI, when you look at, as I said, the first thing is identify your problem. I'll just give an example in this particular perspective, not in terms of data in the geoinformatics ways, but I will do something that every one of you does, sales and marketing. And as I gave an example, 6,000 emails in an hour. How do you do that? I mean, there are tools out there that use ChatGPT, scrap the internet, get emails, and then personalize these emails through AI, and then send the 6,000 emails at one with a click of just click it and send. Yeah. Back to my saying, I've sent 6,000 emails within an hour. If you don't leverage AI, will you send those 6,000 emails with that 1 hour? It will never happen. Yeah?
Wow.
That's just a simple example.
Yeah. Sorry, Bassant had a follow-up here.
Yes. Thank you very much for tackling the topic of AI, Linda, because we are here today, I think, also to share best practice examples and have some positive vibes here and positive energy. Talking about the challenges is very important, but let's highlight some of, the success stories we know from our networks. Are there any Tunisians among us here? Okay, perfect. So I love the company InstaDeep. Maybe you know it, they're Karim Begir and a co-founder, Zohra Slim, female founder. They started in Tunisia. They moved, it's an AI company.
Yeah, what do they do?
It's an AI company, AI startup, founded by Tunisians. They went to London and have their headquarters. Now they are in Paris, in Berlin, in Lagos, in Rwanda, in Dubai, and they are building the AI lab for biotech. Yeah, and they're also working for the Deutsche Bahn. Wow. And they started very, very small from Tunisia. Yeah, and I think we have, with the digital transformation, Linda, we have a historic chance for a partnership at eye level, which I just mentioned before. And we need, from the BMZ and the BMWK and the Ministry of Economy, special programs to scale up and bring these kind of success stories more, creating visibility for them, but also support them in having more opportunities. And I have another example from Algeria, the company Yassir, which is like Uber for the food. And they have also fintech solutions now. They started in Algeria, moved to France. Now they have a very big office in Berlin, and they're hiring like hell. Yeah. So this is also the things we want to highlight and bringing. Therefore, networks matter because I only know about these perfect examples from the network we are creating, and and
it's also like exporting ideas from the continent and providing the solutions over on this side.
It's the technology which is bringing us now at a partner, at an eye level. Yeah.
Sorry, they're still on this wavelength. I'll just give it to
Can I just add on that, on exporting ideas? One thing that I really have to mention, or one big thing that really should be understandable is that digital, as in anything that can be used technologically, can also be scalable. We can have a problem in German, and this problem, if you just have that code or if you just have that solution, there is a way that you can just tweak it a bit and use it in Africa, use it in Kenya, use it in Ghana, as long as that you understand what this is, how it works. I like giving a very good example. I'm always working with examples, sorry. In 2019, I was working on a project detecting solar panels on rooftops. So using AI, create codes, then detect solar panels in a province somewhere here in Germany. And then I used training data, so I have to train the computer to understand, this is a solar panel market. Okay. And I used training data sets from California. This was a terrible fail. Yeah, it was a terrible fail because I did not by then realize that I have to change all the characteristics of California and adapt them to characteristics of German. Yeah, so this is what I'm saying, scalability. Take that code, take that AI system that you have built, use training data sets from Africa. Oh, let me not say Africa because Algeria is different from South Africa and it's totally different geolocation, right? I will use probably Kenya and Morocco and South Africa. Yeah, so if you take these data sets and this algorithm, and then you use data sets from Kenya, because it's on the same characteristic, then your system will work. Just different data sets. So scalability. And borrow idea from Africa, use it in Deutschland. Look at the regulations, government, right? Look if you can adapt it. And that is the beauty part of digitization. Yeah.
Excuse me, Christine. You said before, when you ask who comes from Africa, who is located in Africa, and who is located in Germany, and that's a big difference. I think, if you are in Africa, your perspective is another one, and your opportunities are different. what I see as somebody, or let me declare myself as the African voice, on the institutional level, not just, but also on the level of how the population feels about stuff, and if there is an impact among the population, would create stability and everything. Is anybody here who has a focus on agriculture? Great. Digitalization of agriculture, for example. This is a proposal, and I think this matches on the European institution in terms of acquisition of funding and stuff, and also it brings your people to work. If you come up just with some sophisticated stuff, in the awareness of the political institutions, they say you just try to fulfill the agenda of foreign stakeholders. And that's, I think, is a very important issue to focus on if you want. You say, I'm talking mainly about politics, but politics is a very important issue. And if you have contact in Africa, you then have stakeholders of the private sector because it lacks, you have to talk to the politicians, and to the institutions. So I think, the scope for young entrepreneurs in Africa has to widen and not just to focus on that, what the proposals are, from the European Union or whatsoever. First, you have to come up with a concept which has an impact, where you can make money, and if you can create jobs, you also have the support of the people over there. Because African governments are very suspicious, if you come with foreign partners and then they come up, for example, with the energy stuff, is very crucial. You're not going to get support immediately, except, first you get no funding from over there, and then they say, do we want to have it? We have our own energy system, our own company. We already have a limit of this and this percent on green energy, and that's it for us.
Maybe at this juncture we can open the floor to some questions. How do you guys feel about that? I think there's been a lot of, we've spoken a lot here amongst ourselves, so we just let me get a microphone organized. Thank you guys. Okay, can I just see by show of hands? Okay, I'm going to allocate you a number. 1, 2, 3. Nobody here? 4, 5. You have to remember the number I gave you because I have forgotten. So 1, and I think let's do it this way. Let's, for the benefit of time, I'm going to take all the questions now. As in, say why you.
Yeah.
No. Why don't you like that idea? Because.
No, I'm just saying that because depending on the questions, if we're all taking, they don't really get the questions. The answer becomes quite different.
I know, but I'm gonna crack the whip. Trust me. So here's what we'll do. So ask you if you have. It's better if you want to direct it to somebody actually, right? It's just if we do it individually like this, they all want to, and then not everybody gets a chance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. My name is Maurice.
Do you want to stand and show?
Yeah. Hi, everyone.
Yeah.
My name is Maurice. I run a tech hub in Ghana, Makerspace as well, hardware innovation, renewable energy, and agri-tech. I have 2 questions, one for you and one for BMZ. Concerning, let me start with BMZ. You mentioned the green transition with Africa. That's the industry I've been in for the past 6 years. I'm trying to promote renewable energy, sustainable energy in Africa. To buttress your point, it is quite political to implement some of these solutions. The challenge I've seen in the past is that European companies come into the ecosystem and want to promote green without necessarily focusing on adoption of the African people themselves. Because as much as you in Europe understand what green energy can do, the very local person in Africa does not necessarily care about climate action, or it doesn't mean much to them. So in your presentation of saying that you want to have the conversation on, I think it's in November, my question is, who are you targeting? Are you targeting corporate institutions who are already in it for money, or there's that level where there's a focus on the adoption of the African people as well? Because as much as you want to produce or bring these things in there, the sustainability of the renewable energy project is when the Africans themselves have adopted it and they are paying for the service. Okay. So there's always that importance to be placed on the local people to adopt it. That also requires education and ecosystem development as well. So that's the question I have for BMZ. And to you, sir, whatever you said resonated with me so strongly because working in the ecosystem, we deal a lot with politics. I'm an advocate for inclusion of digitalization and renewable energy into the political space. Being part of AfriLabs and I4Policy, these are the kind of work that we do. But the challenge has always, and that's the problem I have with some of, let me say, our diplomats, having a proper understanding of how the European system works. How possible is it to convince or help advocacy groups in Africa to convince the institutions that we have on the continent to understand the bridge between tech and Africa's future? Because as much as we think they understand, they actually don't. Right? In Ghana, first, I can say for a fact that it's not necessarily about not wanting to accept the energy proposition from Europe. It's all about money for the politicians. I can speak for Ghana. I can't say for other countries. Right? So it's not, oh, Ghana has an energy agenda or it want to follow through. No, it's about where the money goes, we follow. So how do we also make sure that they understand that as much as its impact, there's also revenue to be made? Because I can share one example briefly. I tried bringing a wind turbine company from Germany during 2019 during the German African Business Summit in Ghana to set up in Ghana. We have gone through 90% of the projects. The only issue to deal with was now to pay politicians to then allow us to promote wind turbines in Ghana. And that was what stalled the project. But that's also something you need to understand in the African context, that depending on the country, there are issues that you have to do with on the institutional level before some of these things can be promoted. If not, we the ones on the ground doing the work don't have access to do anything. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Maurice. Appreciate that. Number 2 is next to you. That's Jeff.
Hi, good morning. My name is Jeff. And thank you, first of all, for sharing your perspective and insights. I was quite surprised when you said that the FDI for Africa was under 1%. So you also mentioned that you're going to continue the program G20 Compact with Africa. Correct. So, and best to my knowledge, this program was already running for at least 5 years. So
2017, yeah.
Yeah, so was it a success or not? And why is it continuing? And how is it continuing? Are you doing some changes? Because obviously 1%, 5 years, 1%, I guess, based on my opinion, it's not a success. So why is it being continued like this? And if yes, is there any changes? Thank you.
Thank you. Number 3 was, thank you.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
Thank you so much for your insight. Very interesting. My question is, when it comes to the data collection, that's pretty hard to have comparative studies, and we're lacking a lot of data from different countries when it comes to energy data or feeding into the AI, or even when it comes to comparing economic metrics, like comparing GDP or stuff, which is the most used metric so far. So my question is, what can we do to get more data? I know there's this initiative, I think it's from Kenya, it's called Ushahidi. Yeah.
Yes.
So how can we have more things like that?
So that one's for Linda.
Yeah.
A question, yeah.
And for everyone who wants to.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lisa. You are number 3, so number 4 is back there.
Hi, my name is Zach. I'm founder of Mundwha. We are digitizing export from Africa to Europe. And I think all the questions were really super hard, but also my question is a little bit harder.
Bring it on.
Yeah. So I always struggled with what is actually German's agenda in Africa. Like a lot of people talk about, let's say, the Chinese agenda or the French agenda, but I get so confused when I see the different initiatives. Like when I see GIZ's agenda is kind of creating jobs in Africa, but then in other administration in Germany, they would like to bring talent here. And then also the focus on different countries. So each organization is kind of focusing on specific countries. So I would like Benjamin, also like Charles and Bassant, like from your perspective, what's in your own words, the German agenda in Africa? Yeah.
Thank you, Zakai. If you ever quit that business, you can be a journalist. You'll make a very good one. Don't you get those questions from journalists? Like, okay, one more question.
Yeah. Hello, I'm
hi.
Fatma from Tunisia.
Hey,
Thank you
Fatma.
for this insightful conversation. So my first question is going to be for Linda. I'm working on a social enterprise that we are trying to empower handcraft creators in Tunisia through education and selling opportunities. We are trying to help them grow their businesses. So a big part of our work is to provide training and coaching sessions for non-tech savvy women and some small business owners to help them learn about sales, marketing, branding, how to handle operation and stuff. So what are your recommendations or tips that we need to include in our training curriculum that will help those non-tech savvy or the ones who have basic skills and knowledge about technology to get more included and be more comfortable using the technological tools to grow their businesses? How can we get them to this stage and be more comfortable with this idea? So this is the first one. The second one, I wanted to emphasize about the part where we need more scale-up financing. So you have already mentioned, Ms. Bassant, that we have a successful story about Expansia, for example, and Instadeep. However, the challenge in Tunisia is we are having an evolving entrepreneurial and startup ecosystem. We are having a lot of incubators, accelerators. We have GZ and many other institutions who are helping and growing this ecosystem. However, the main challenge is we have a lot of ideation focus and we have no growth and scale focus. So how can we get those actors, the ones who have the funds, with the willingness to help to get them shift their focus from the ideation programs and all what's related to, guys, we have over 700 labelized startups in Tunisia. However, very few, like literally very few, who grew and made it to the expansion and scale up. So how can we shift the focus to the growth and scale and help people change a little bit the educational programs and the funds, etc., into the next scale, so we can have true Tunisian successful stories. Thank you.
Thank you, Fatma. Okay, the last shall be first. So we're going to start with Fatma's questions, actually. The first one to you.
Good. I think your question is one of the most difficult one in my sector because this is an aspect of digital divide. You have different skill sets from. I can put a persona in your the women that you are dealing with. So I will put probably the same age as my mom. This is kind of the characteristics I will always describe my mom. So a story back with you. My mom has. We are 6, and 4 of us are in technology. Yeah, and I made sure that all the siblings that follow me are into technology. So my younger sister is a software developer working from Kenya in Netherlands. My brother is doing his undergraduate in data science. My other brother is doing technical sales. And I'm always describing to my mom what they do. They do tech. So this is a skill gap that you have to address in different way. First of all, I will have to understand the women. And in this perspective, you do understand perhaps they have less access to internet. Their skill gap is definitely, a gap. And you bring to them training. Yeah? You can either invest into somebody who brings to them the technological aspect in that they can always leverage technology in their items. So introduce a way that you can put their products online for visibility. They have the visibility, 1. 2, if they have the visibility and somebody is ordering from them, is there a possibility of integrating, let's say, something like a database in the background that sends an SMS to the women and like, okay, there's somebody who ordered this particular item from your collection. Yeah, and through the women, through your organization, there is a way that you can manage the item and the money part. In Kenya, we always call M-Pesa. And what we do is somebody sends a message that goes into a central location, then to the person who has the item. The person gets the message, then orders a boda motorbike rider or bicycle rider to pick up the item. And that is kind of bridging the gap between the techie and the women who are not yet, who don't have that technological background. So from my perspective, that's how you can approach this problem. And I'm sorry that it's mainly you as a persona and not addressing the whole of the crowd.
No, everyone benefited. So you can take the second
exactly.
question.
I have two best practice examples from you, and I will be very happy to connect you with them. The first one is from Morocco. There is an NGO we worked with. They are having digital training for women in rural areas. They have already the set of training, you know, exactly in the same field, handicrafts. They started, you know, by giving them training like how to make a nice mobile photo of your products, etc. So already the curricula is there. So just, you know, we need to connect you with them, and maybe you can come up with a joint project. The second best practice example I will share with you is from Senegal. It's our partner now there from the Women in Business Network. It's the Women Investment Club. They are rich women who put themselves together to invest in female-led startups, only female-led startups. So women invest in women, yeah, and it's a beautiful institution, yeah. Just regarding scale up, they're just addressing this topic and the access for funds, and you just join this Women Investment Club if you can buy a certain amount of ticket, and they just channel it into female-led startups. Point. That's it.
I think there's also one in South Africa that does the same. Yeah.
But I think it's also that second question she asked, right? That there's a lot of emphasis on this budding stage, right? The ideation part, not so much on the scaling up.
But this is also the Women Investment Club.
So
they support scale-ups and growth. You know, they have different programs, so from the ideation to the scale-up programs. But it's also something we can address the BMZ for.
Right? Yeah, maybe your programs could be more tailored to the other phases, perhaps.
I mean, to be honest with you, money is always limited, and there's been quite a strong push globally to focus at the bottom of the pyramid, really building things from scratch, and not thinking the next step, right? And this is, well, there are discussions going on, and we're in our private sector engagement portfolio, we're looking at that, how we can make it easier to scale successful products, how we can expand our scale-up funding. We have a program called Upscaling, implemented by DEG, which is like the German IFC, that supports upscaling. It does trying to actually it's about crowding in venture capital. Now it's at a ratio of 1 to 4, which is not bad. We're getting it to probably 6 to 8, but it's limited to fin and green tech. Now we're actually expanding it to agri-tech and health tech. But you know, the money we put there, we have to take from somewhere else, and we're facing shrinking budgets, and that's also part of the equation.
The money problem. The GED, is that the program that assisted Mo Ibrahim, the Sudanese tech billionaire from Africa? Do you know? The GED program, is that where he was financed? Because he always talks about, you know Mo Ibrahim, he was a beneficiary of the GED program. So it works when it works. Okay, so we have the question about what is Germany's actual agenda?
Well, you ask for my personal opinion. So this is going to be a personal answer, and there is no straightforward answer, and this is probably part of the problem. To be frank with you, that in the past we've been very idealistic, and the question what we actually want, we were very hesitant to ask that multilateralism is also a means to an end, right? And if I'd had to narrow it down, when in the end, you know, if you ask me, what does Germany want? The question should actually be, what does Europe want? And we need to come up with a strong European voice. The reality is that there's also some competition, especially among businesses within Europe. But we would be so much stronger if, like, European companies bid on these tenders together, right? Especially when it comes to big projects. And quite often then we lose the tender to a Chinese company because we don't do that. But there are very good examples where we succeeded. In the end, for us, it really is about, like, the one thing is partnership, right? Because Africa, from a German perspective, a European perspective, Africa is our neighbor. And we believe it should be our friend. And we want to be Africa's friend. That's number one. Number two is, from a development cooperation perspective, that's my business. Of course, it's about, as I earlier said, like supporting economies, people to create more, better, greener jobs, so that there are living wages that people can live in dignity. And in the past, there was a simple narrative: we need to invest more into education, then people don't have to migrate. When you look at the evidence, it's bullshit. The evidence is that the smarter people are, the better, the more trained people are, the more they migrate. And that's not a bad thing, right? So they really have to distinguish between refugees and migrants. And migrants might benefit the country they go to and the country they come from, right? And to build up these ecosystems, to build this qualification. It's not an either or, and it's never enough. We're always going to face a shortage of skilled labor in all countries. It's always a challenge, right? But one thing is, like, Germany is an old economy, and many African economies, they're young economies, and that's also a chance, right, to invest in skilled labor. So education is a top priority for us, for the benefit of both continents, right? To have skilled labor and to really bring innovation, tech innovation, IT innovation forward. And the third thing is, and that's also true, and that's what I said earlier, of course, this just transition, we want to partner in, right? To somehow manage to stop climate change together, to minimize climate impacts, because that also has to do with life and dignity. The more severe climate impacts we see, a lot of the development we've invested in together in the past is literally going to be washed away. And this is something we also want to partner in. So that would be from me. A genuine partnership on eye level, a joint investments in more, better, greener jobs for the benefit of both our continents.
Did you want to weigh in on that one as well?
Yes, Mr. Knödler, I'm sorry. That sounds a little bit too general for me. Not in terms, don't take it personal. I think, I can claim, that I was one of the key persons who changed the perspective of your ministry in direction to Africa and in terms of economic development. And I remember when it was in September 2016, I brought the issue up when the migration crisis intensified, and the people mostly attacked the Africans. I said, Africans are not the largest number of migrants, but they're the most visible because they look the most different. If you see some Syrians or Iraqis, they think they are Turks, which are since a long time in Germany. But if they see in a little town 5 more Africans, they say, we are run over by the Africans. I have to say, I said that in the first meeting after the summer in the CDU-CSU fraction meeting. I said we have to change that. We have to make an economic development, an economic cooperation with Africa. And prior to that, I was inviting once 5 African presidents to the Chamber of Commerce in Frankfurt, and they all said they're going to come. They're all committed. But then the Chancellor came up, Mr. Heusgen, and said, can't we take over? I said, okay, take over. And so to the G7 meeting in Elmau, these presidents were invited, also Macky Sall. But the key question is now, what does Europe want? I think I advocate. I think it's more, it's more personal. It's a bilateral economic dialogue with Africa, because like you already stated, France may have a total different agenda in Africa as Germany has. And so a European, how does it look like? And coming up, if you know Africa, if you know the culture, if you know the politicians, they don't want to say, okay, me, I'm Europe. They want to say, me, I'm Germany, me, I'm Italy, and me, I'm France. So what I think, Africa should not be seen just as somebody, as how can I say, a continent which lives on budget aid. I think every country in the world lives on taxes and on economic activities, on an economic sector which, how can I say, pays taxes to the government, and from that, how can I say, from that budget, you finance healthcare, you finance education. If you're not an economy like that, basically you are not an economy. You're a protectorate. And I think this definitely has to change. And if Europe does not understand, due to the current circumstances, of unrest and everything, that you don't change this system, I think Africa, and especially its population, going to drift away more and more from Europe. Concerning, your project agriculture, this is agrotech. I mean, this is labor intense. You need work which is labor intense. And what Akinwumi Adesina said, for the African Development Center, you can feed, GDP does not feed people. If GDP comes from labor, from sales of resources, you don't create jobs. You have to create jobs. And then if you go, to regional organizations and they have farmer collectivities, then you create a visual market, for example, a visual market which is open for locals and which is open also for the rest of the world. I mean, that is something, and this is something what maybe PM said would support and fund. Well, just, there's just one thing. If you do that on the European level, it's not going to work. Because most of the subsidies in Brussels, 50 billion a year, they're in agriculture. And if you're in France, and you don't subsidize French products, they're not going to vote for you. And that's also the discussion, not because just with the African Union, with African continents, it's also the discussion of Mercosur. I was recently in France and said, we don't need
the trade agreement with Latin
we don't need the meat
countries.
from Mercosur. We have our own meat. They have excellent meat in southern France. But of course, I think Germany has the potential. And I remember when all this initiative started, the Marshall Plan, everything, the whole Africa, we were all very enthusiastic. But just, I think, meetings like that, there have to be more, and you have to speak more, from your side, how on location that is, because an institution in Africa is a GIZ or whoever it is, they don't know much about your life and the living circumstances of normal people. It's an elite dialogue, there's a big strategy, but there has to be something below on the micro level.
We have a follow-up. It would have been your question, Lisa, but we're in this topic already, so I think let's just
very
continue.
briefly come in, because I actually think we're on the same page here, even it doesn't seem so. Because but seriously, because there's not going to be a bilateral dialogue between Germany and Africa. We need a bilateral dialogue between Germany and Morocco, Germany and Kenya, Germany and Rwanda, and so on. And that I'm absolutely with you. We need to become better at that. But at the same time, we also need a dialogue between Europe and Africa, right? Between the continents. And yes, the institutions are very different. But this we need too, and it's not an either or. And as you said, we know what China wants with the Belt and Road Initiative, right? We should, and we've just started, but we should get there too with Europe's Global Gateway Initiative. Yes, it's still in baby shoes, right? And here it's not going to be an either or. It's just that, many countries need a lot of infrastructure. It's not like, and that's always been actually at the heart of German foreign policy, not to force a country to decide between two poles, but to be an additional partner and for countries to choose their partner. That's very important from our perspective. And having said this, that we're convinced that we can bring something to the table, that we can bring quality infrastructure, services, and also the necessary technical assistance to the table, that's very much of a value added to a Chinese investment.
Just be fast. The Chinese are fast. It's a matter of time. You don't have all the time. Nobody cares what problems you have within European nations. Others are faster than you are. And then the terrain is occupied. You're done.
Bassant, on this one?
Yes, exactly. And it's also a question to you and the BMZ about what also Zakaria said. You're focusing on 8 countries, I think, or 9 countries in this Sonderinitiative of creating jobs in Africa. So how do you pick up the countries, and how do you is there coordination among the European countries? Who is doing what in which country? I mean,
yes, there is, and that's been an intense dialogue for a long time. What? Listen. To be honest with you, in some it works better than others. And the stronger the geopolitical interest of an individual country is, the harder it gets. Right, but in our own system there is a lot of coordination. Please do not add a layer of coordination, because we also have to do our work. Huh?
Okay, so Maurice, I think we've not everything. Okay, we'll maybe do a follow-up at this time. But Lisa had a question that she didn't. I think Linda, you can take
that. That was for me. Yeah. Interesting question, because
what was the question again? Actually, it was about
on data collection.
Data collection, correct?
Yeah. So it was really an interesting one. I'm kind of like really stammering, because this was also one of the big topic when it comes to data analytics. The problem is always the data. It is available, yes, but does the regulation allow you to use it? Question mark. Yeah. And does the company that collects the data allowing you to use it, how expensive it is? These are kind of the questions that are always around data collection and data usage. And if you're working in Africa, at least right now, maybe the perfect time to collect that data, because we Africans do not have yet an existing legislation that prevents you from collecting some kind of data. Yeah? But here in Europe, in German to be specific, I've tried using CRM data, this customer relationship, CRM, relationship management data. Yeah. It is a nightmare. You cannot even get access to it, because of all that regulation about data privacy and everything around it. Let me go. Another thing is in the area that I know, geodata. The only data that you can get is from satellite images that you cannot even see if that is a tree or not. Yeah? So the only thing that you realize is a tree is when you do some analysis and the tree characteristics shows that, this is a tree. But you will not do something to do with analysis in agriculture also. You cannot say, oh, that is a weed. No. But yet there are companies that are collecting such data. Companies that use military-grade drones to identify weeds in a field and send a laser just to remove it out. But how expensive is one drone? 20,000 euros. Yeah, sure. So it's both expensive and inaccessible. And this whole thing about data and collection is just a part of its own that each organization has to deal with. Yeah? Sorry, I don't have a great answer.
May I add just 2 lines to that? First of all, collecting data in an informal society is very difficult. The other thing is you have to attach some other technical solutions to that, like, for example, remote sense technology that has a military and a civil use. Yeah, but mostly it's used for military use. But it has a dual use, and I think if you're connected with that, for example, you even can detect the climate where a malaria mosquito grows the best. You can do that with a remote sense technology. So I think it depends what you connect, what you attach to tech, which elements, and then you can collect data. But like you said, not everybody is interested. It was in one of my first speeches, I said there is nearly no data available from Africa. But like I already mentioned, in an informal society, very tough.
Okay, Jeff had a question that we have to finish, Maurice. Can I just see by show of hands other questions that we have? Okay, so we have to do this very quickly. I think Jeff's question gets a priority. And then we'll finish off Maurice, and then we have to get going. Jeff, you asked about?
I was asking about the G20 compared with...
Is that program going to continue? Exactly, thanks. Yes.
So, no, I remember. Yeah. So, and it has different layers, yeah? And the one thing is, if I say, like, or the share of German FDI to Africa is just 1%, German FDI has grown. So German FDI to Africa has also grown, right? So, but just, it has also grown in other places. And to attribute it to whether it has grown because of or in spite of the compact with Africa, that we don't know. What the compact with Africa has also done, it has improved G20 coordination, especially, and that includes the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. And that's very important because when it comes to these investments, the regulation, as we discussed earlier, the regulation needs also needs to be right, and also the macro fiscal environment to attract, to have some stability, also fiscal stability. And that what colleagues at the World Bank and the IMF tell me now, finally our two institutions work hand in hand on the country level, because that matters too. A lot of the coordination is not done in Berlin or Washington DC. It's done in the countries themselves, where the institutions have to coordinate and to coordinate the fiscal side and the investment side. That has been challenging in the past, and that, colleagues tell me, has really improved within the compact with Africa. It certainly is a mixed bag. It was a lot of trial and error, but it put Africa on the G20 table, and that really made a difference, as Charles Huber said earlier. And we're going to put it back because it somehow lost the attention of the public eye. And there's also now discussions and negotiations going on to crowd more countries in to make it a stronger, bigger network. And it's yet to be seen whether it's a success or not. Huh?
Okay.
But there was a question of Maurice.
Yes. Do you remember that?
Who is there? Somebody here from Kenya?
Linda.
That I know, but that doesn't count. She's on the panel. So I mean, green transition means a different thing for different countries.
Yeah.
And when you look at Africa as a whole, the statistics is from last year, but I don't think it has changed much. What do you think is the share of renewable energy generation of the entire energy mix of Africa? It's 60%, and in Kenya it's even 90%. And we just agreed on a partnership with Kenya to bring it to 100. So actually Africa is the world leader in renewable energy. And yes, Charles Huber is right that there's also natural resources, that fossil energy is going to be part of the mix for a foreseeable future, right? Nobody denies that. And at the same time, because the energy need is enormous in many countries, and speaking green transformation, a lot will have to be done through additional energy. So we need a lot of additional energy investments in addition to the fossil fuels that might or might not be exploited. In many countries, of course, they will be exploited because there's a business case for that too. So for us, it's not an either or, it's really ramping up the market. And from a development cooperation perspective, it's very much about making it accessible to the people, about building the grids with the countries, making the investments, creating access to energy where people don't have it so far. And at the same time build green industries, right? And so it's not when, yes, Europe's also interested in importing green energy, and Germany is going to be a net energy importer in the foreseeable future. but also that it's not an either or. It's not just a new. It's not extracting a new industry, right? It's not about just grabbing resources and bringing them to Europe. From our perspective, it's very much about building an ecosystem about renewable energy. And yes, that is a political agenda. And yes, it's geared towards benefiting the people. And that's also going to be a lot of trial and error and forth and back. But I very much hope that we're in this boat together. But it boils down to the individual consumer.
Next round of questions. Just by show of hands. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, Lord. Okay. We have not done very well in this first round because, we were not disciplined. So, because we've prepared a nice lunch and we have other programs going on, I'm going to have to rush you guys, right? So just get straight to the point. Questions. Directed to one person and only one person tackle a question, unfortunately. That's just so that we can make time. I forgot this. Please show me your hands again. Sorry. Okay, so one, let's start with him.
Hi, thank you for a very candid conversation. My name is Eli. Curious to know, you've been talking about the agenda of Germany and Europe, which is not still fuzzy. What's the agenda of AGYLE itself? What does success look like?
Okay.
From BMZ's perspective.
Thank you very much. And then we're going to this side of the room, the lady right next to you. Sorry, I've mixed up those numbers.
Thank you. My name is Paulina, and I work with women entrepreneurs in the informal sector. My question to you, Linda, what are the pathways to entry concerning women, pathways to entry concerning women transitioning into tech and the fusion of AI from a local perspective?
Okay, Linda.
All right, thank you. My question is Benjamin. I want to know why a lot of emphasis is not being put on nuclear energy.
Okay. Let's pause here for now. There's two for you. What's AGYLE's agenda? Was that for Benjamin? From a BMZ perspective, this one as well, and then we'll go to Linda.
Well, we very much hope that through AGYLE we create new investments and new partnerships that generate from this very network, both in the companies you run, you work for, but also as part of this network, right? And to build these business relationships between Germany and many countries in Africa. But in the end, it's not about what we want from AGYLE. It's about what you make out of it. So in the end, AGYLE is what you believe it is. And please, after this week, tell us whether this worked, whether it matched your expectations, and whether we should adapt the program so that it serves better your need to advance your companies, both here in Germany or wherever you live and work.
Yes. There was one as well about nuclear.
So your thoughts on nuclear?
Well, that's so as you know, we as the German government decided. Now, I didn't make the decision myself, but I work for the German government, and my employer made the decision to phase out nuclear energy because we came to the conclusion as government and as a society that it's not safe. And yes, it's debatable, and many have debated it, and there continue to be debates. And that they might be around, but for the time being, that is our decision. Okay. And what we don't support in our economy, we don't promote as an export, right? And for better or worse, this is our position, that we believe after the nuclear accident we've seen in Chernobyl, after the nuclear accident we've seen in Fukushima, that it's better and safer for the world to phase out nuclear energy and to invest in renewables. And whether we're going to see a renaissance of nuclear energy, probably, or with fusion technology in mind, that might or might not be. But when I was a kid, nuclear fusion...
Many years ago.
And that's many years ago. Nuclear fusion was 30 years from then. And now it's 30 years from now. Right? And yes, they've really advanced the technology, and for the first time, just this very year, there was like net positive energy generation from nuclear fusion. But it's still like a very long. I mean, this is like a very long-term perspective. Whether until we know whether it's going to be part of our energy mix.
Okay, Linda, the question.
Let me just repeat the question. You asked pathways to transition. The entry point. Entry point to women in tech. One thing is you need to want it. It's amazing what will can make you do. You need to want to do something. That is always the entry point. I want to be a woman in tech. I want to deal with AI. And once, just from there, all the path will be defined for you. Get a mentor, and that is it. You don't need
join networks.
Yes, and join networks, but you need to have a will.
You never give up. Never ever. Just when you achieved your goal, then you can give up.
And it's true. It's not a smooth sailing. I mean, especially in this society, it's not a smooth sailing. We also need our men to support us, encourage us. Yeah, you don't just say, she's a woman. It doesn't work that way. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Pardon?
Fusion of local language, local knowledge in AI. Any thoughts?
Fusion of local knowledge in AI. Oh, that is interesting. I will not say there is anything like fusion or, I mean, in a technological point of view, you will not say that there is fusion, yeah? And it needs somebody to bring there, to talk the language, yeah? You need to make people understand what is AI. I mean, I cannot just go to my rural area, which I go very often, and start preaching AI to the people. I need to associate AI to what the people know. Yeah? I need to give a story, and that's why I entered into evangelism. You need to talk the local language in a technological way. You cannot go there buzzing AI, artificial intelligence. They have no idea what is it. But if you take a concept that they do understand, I like using Google Maps, yeah? And I'm like, okay, I want to move from here to there. This is Google Map. Behind what it does, it connects technology to show you the easiest way from this point to that point. And this is a concept that, I mean, smartphones, a lot of people in Africa have them. I should add this. Africa, especially Kenya, has a better internet connection than German. Yeah?
It's true.
Okay. I think you have to spend some time together during lunch, the two of you, because I think you have a follow-up from your question as well. Okay, these were the three. Where were the other hands? That's a new hand. The hand at the back. Huh? He was there. I'm so sorry. Please give him the mic, and then we're coming up front here. I'm under pressure now. I'm trying to cut people, you know? Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. I am Abdu. I'm representing Germany from Simrise AG. I want to ask a question for the politician topics. Firstly, which is the actions which the government will be undertaking to support that best talents from Africa or professionals from Africa that can also be able to come to Germany and then work. I have examples I will bring why I'm asking these questions. I am head of one department, my company, and I'm looking for somebody for PMO role, Project Management Office. So when I got their candidates, almost 80% of them, they come from India, living in Germany, but come from India. From African continent, I got maybe like 2 or 3 people, right? So at the same time, I know that there are people in Africa looking for visa to come here to work, but it's difficult for them to get the visa to come to work. At the same time, if you go in India, they get easier the visa to come here to work. So what are action the government can take to support that? The second question is also to the politician.
Exactly.
But not for Germany, for Senegal.
Who's the real politician in the house today?
Yeah, I'm owner of 2 companies. One company here in Germany and one company in Togo for IT services and digitalization. I am looking to bring talent from Africa to be able to work in my company, right? But at the same time, they are like, not diplomatic, but like formalities difficult for them to be able to come here. Firstly is how they can easily get the visa if they come directly as professional. The other point is how, if they want to come as students, they can come in easier way. I have one many scholarships I give to them, and one of them I was obliged to bring him to France to study. I studied in France, bachelor, and later on to move to Germany. The same persons, they learn German in Togo to B2, B2 level, but it was difficult for them to get their admission to come to Germany to study and being able to work my company. So what will be their action taken or to be taken by politicians?
Thank you so much for that.
You asked the politician.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, let's take the other questions. Sorry, I just want to take the other questions, but I think you said 2 questions, but I really heard 1 question there, and I think that's the one we need to deal with. The ladies in the front here, there was 3 hands here, and I'm sure there was someone in the middle. We'll come back.
First of all, good morning.
Good morning.
I had to write this question down so I don't forget anything. So given the increasing interconnectedness of the global economies and the unique position that Africa holds in terms of potential and growth, how do you envision the Africa Master Plan, as you put it, fostering sustainable partnerships and innovation between Africa and Germany, let's say Europe as a whole?
Okay.
Both of you, either one.
No, I'm only, okay,
it pushes it to me.
But I want to take the other questions first. Thank you, Renita.
Hello, my name is Jana Pieske, and I'm a coach for remote and hybrid working teams. So therefore, my question links perfectly with the one from Abdul. And I would like to direct it to you, Bassant, because I wanted to ask you what role can remote work have there if people cannot come over, and what is actually needed so that we can link up and collaborate together on a remote level without migration, without, like, if people want to come, they're welcome, but if they want to actually stay in their countries, but how can we as a company work together with them, and what is needed so that we can do that?
Great.
Hello everyone, I'm Muriel Wegner, currently working in management consulting, mostly in the energy space, and also writing a PhD on German Energy Corporation. So my question is about the role of potential public-private partnerships, because they have been used for knowledge exchange, for potential de-risking or perceived de-risking, and if they can play a role, which role, and how can we make them last efficiently?
Thank you. Please. Yeah.
So I have to admit I'm not an immigration expert, but I know that there have been difficult conversation, coordination going on within the German government. Here clearly being the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and also the Ministry of the Economy being in the lead. And I know that this is something that reaches us a lot, that it's so hard to get a visa to come to Germany for various reasons. And there's a new legislation in place, and it's meant to make this easier. How this translates into action, I don't know yet, to be honest with you. It's meant to be easier. It's meant to be more standardized, because in the past and up to now, what we've seen is that the decision is very much down to the individual consular officer. And then it really depends on how this individual interprets the rules, and that shouldn't be. And then the second step is that the offices in Germany that decide on the residence permit are not under the purview of the federal government, but the lender, the states within Germany. And these processes are very tedious and long. And the new legislation is meant to speed that up, and I really hope that it translates into action, because this has not been our strong suit in the past. Yeah. But probably you can add to this from a Senegalese perspective. Yeah,
that's the same for Senegal. I mean, there's the Deutsche Akademische Austauschdienst, and I don't know how that works. I just know, that even diplomats sometimes, are not allowed to enter Europe. What can I say? The situation speaks for itself. There is a lot of work what needs to be done. You were talking about, may I refer to that?
Yes, please.
You were talking about the Marshall Plan?
Master Plan.
Africa Master. Now, the Master Plan was of, how can I say, was just a statement in an interview from my side for Deutsche Welle. And out of the master plan, then the Marshall Plan was developed, what was a little bit euphemistic perception, because the Marshall Plan for 54 countries with a budget of that time of $8 billion, dollars, euro, as just to the annual need for developing African infrastructure alone is 50 to 80 billion dollars. So the thing was the expectations were high, and the idea itself was a great idea. But I have to be, Africa then all of a sudden, was in the media, and if you know how politics are, everybody tries to promote himself a little bit. I added also a vocational training to the African guidelines for Africa. But then you had the competition also within the ministries. Then you had that confused very much the diplomacy of Africa. They said, you have Ministry of Economic Affairs, you have Ministry of Development, Economic Development, then Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Where do we address our message? And that was the problem, and that's why I think, meanwhile, it's abandoned. It doesn't exist anymore. The Marshall Plan for Africa, it's not in service anymore. This is my last information about that. But however, like I said, things, they have to have an impact. And it has to accelerate economic development in Africa in general, not just in the, in the idea of the classic development cooperation, because development is development. Like I said, a country needs, how can it be that a continent like Africa, so rich in resources, demands aid? We are banking, but we don't have anything. There are no value chains. There's nothing. There's no transformation, no manufacturing. And if that sector of manufacturing not going to be fostered, the continent will stay like it is. And if at the other side, the African stakeholders, the politicians, don't push that agenda, it's not going to happen. Because, the principal interest is what works for our own agenda. So, that's why, how can I say, the population is tired of the system. And I think Europe has to support and also have a focus on the base of the African base, to have stable relations with the African continent. To work on the base and projects with, how can I say, less sophisticated or even sophisticated. They have to have an impact on the base of the population who have no private assets or equity to survive, like food security or something like this. This is of the essence. That's why, how can I say, projects like that are very, very important.
Yes, the good news is things have improved. Germany was hesitant to give me my visa 23 years ago. So things are improving, but not as quick, as fast as actually we need it. Yeah, and I can share with you my personal story during lunch. It's hilarious. But back to your question, I think outsourcing is a very big business, and today we're just sending 2 German companies to Tunisia in order to meet Tunisian experts who can be employed remotely. I don't know why Africa is not on the radar of the German business when it comes to outsourcing, but we need to share best practice examples. We grabbed BMW to Tunisia, and now they are, initiating one project after the other to develop apps. And the German business is in need for the talents, not only IT talents, but also project management talents in general, because we cannot get them as fast as we want to. So I think sharing best practice examples and talking to the business associations here in Germany to put this on the agenda. Outsourcing is a future sector to be addressed and to be, can solve a lot of problems on both ways. It's a win-win. Yeah.
Africans are afraid to go to Tunisia. They may end up in the desert.
I know
we have this problem there.
But still, we need also the African, among themselves, they have to interact more.
You have a follow-up?
It's just very briefly. I mean, I'm glad you addressed this. And we have a program. It's called the Import Promotion Desk. It's about like really matching companies. Many of the countries we targeted are in Africa, but it's not limited to Africa. Like local companies to match them to importers in Germany. And now it's been very agriculture heavy in the past, but now we're actually adding IT outsourcing to the list of sectors, to the IPD. And more countries, because we really see the business opportunity there. Import Promotion Desk.
You mentioned that particular name. You mentioned the name when you used it.
It's Import Promotion Desk. The abbreviation is IPD or IPD in German.
Yes.
They're sitting in the same building with the Agentur für Wirtschaft.
Say again?
What about the data? So if you engage local employees in Africa, data actually this is in Germany, you can't really employ people in Africa because of data governance and stuff like that.
I know that a lot of companies solve this problem having their own platforms. I mean, this is not the main challenge, not at all.
Okay. Linda, there was a question for you.
From what you said, a lot of companies, as you said, a lot of companies solve this, and by using virtual environment where you do not need to transfer your data to Africa, where your software developer is. You just need to work on this virtual environment seated somewhere in German, and when it comes to data protection, that is it. Yeah. But from your point and his point, this is something that we as especially Africans who are in German should be trying to push to that agenda and see how we can promote more talent, especially from Africa, to come to Europe. I've been in this sector of tech, and it's really so stressful to look, and everything that you do is second-guessed.
Yes.
Yeah? Just because you're from Africa, and the education level is not the same. Yeah.
Okay, guys, the church bells have rung. I'm sure you heard that. It is time for lunch. I think let's wrap it up here. They will hang around a little bit. Please maybe grab them at lunch. But can we please thank our wonderful panel? Thank you so much. Wow. Yes. Yes.
I wrote a book about that.
Yeah.
It's in German.
It's in German. Whoever reads German.
We need to get him a T-shirt that says, I wrote a book about that. But thank you so much. I think, you know what, you've fielded some very difficult questions, but I really have to point out, I think Germany's made some very interesting, so I think you've done quite a bit. The fact that we're here today actually is really testament to the efforts that are being done, and we notice that and we appreciate that. And I think what forums like this do is give us the opportunity to improve what is being done, to continue in the dialogue. So I think take that message back to the ministry as well, that it is making a difference, it is appreciated, and we will just use the opportunity to make sure that we scale it up so that we can see. But I think we've seen Germany as an actor on the continent very much welcome. I think it was interesting for me on this side of the world to see the reluctance sometimes that Germany has, but I can say, and I can speak for many people, that I think people are willing to deal with Germany as a partner. We hear it from our governments, and we're interested to see you guys continue on that front. Linda, I'm so proud of you. I think you've done such an amazing thing. It really great. Really inspirational young women like you guys, and Bassant as well, the amount of women that you've helped in the work that you're doing. It's such a selfless gig, just making sure that other people can get these jobs and get these connections. Thank you so much for that. And of course from our ambassador in the German government, really taking the message out there. I do want to ask that you show us your tattoos at some point, because he told us we have to see this tattoo about Bavaria. But thank you so much, guys. We really appreciate it. And of course, Mr. Knödler, the time you've taken to talk to us this morning. And to you guys, I want to tell you now.